Just days into Trump's landslide victory, and he's already delivering big results on the border crisis. New York City Mayor Eric Adams pulling the plug on those freebie debit cards for illegals that cost us over $50 million. And it happened just one day after Adams had a phone call with Trump. A massive migrant caravan from Mexico made up of thousands just got cut down in half as illegals rethink their shot at coming into Trump's America. This is music to the ears of Latinos who want a tougher border and back Trump big time, giving him historic numbers for a Republican. But instead of dealing with that reality, Joy Reid's trying to shame Latino men.
Latino men who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas from here on in.
An abuela is a grandmother in Spanish. For those, not for those of you, everybody doesn't know that. Judge Janine, they're playing the race card on themselves.
You know what the crazy part of all this is? It's so crazy that they will use whatever mental gymnastic they have to come up with to make it negative against anyone who may have supported Donald Trump. And so what you've got are people like Joy Reid, who I think pretty much hates everybody, coming out and saying it's all your fault. Whatever happens is going to be your fault. You know what? I don't even like talking about them anymore because they represent such a small percentage of Americans. Look, it turns out that immigration was the second most important issue to voters. And to those voters who rated it the number one issue, 88% of them voted for Trump. And those were Latinos, and they were blacks, and they were whites, and they were everybody. You know why? Because everybody is against crime. Everybody is against the country where we let people in unvetted, and we don't even look to make sure that they get arrested, that we allow sanctuary cities to exist, that we allow people like Eric Adams to give him like these debit or credit cards because he thinks it's cheaper to give them cash because they don't like the food we give them. Give me a break. And sometimes I don't like the food I cook, but I eat it, you know, and the whole thing is so crazy. We need to be a safe country. First obligation of America is to protect its citizens. And these people are just noise in the wind. They don't matter. America has spoken. The majority have spoken. We don't want it. Deal with it.
It is pretty impressive how we're already seeing results, and he hasn't even started the transition, Greg.
Yeah, the debit card story is proof that the thought of Trump gets results. It's like, you know, when your parents go away for the weekend, so you throw a kegger. But when the adults come home, you better start cleaning up the mess, because if you don't, there will be hell to pay. And I think that's the way the Trump effect is. I think after Trump won, the EU just said they're buying oil from America over Russia. I wonder why. The moment the guy wins, all of a sudden, mysteriously, the bad stuff starts going away. You know, the Latino district that voted for Trump by 75% also voted for Clinton by a huge margin. I guess that's misogyny, too. I don't know. I think Joy Reid has completely lost her crap. The Latino vote is a great example, again, of a media narrative failing to have any effect on an inoculated population. The narrative stipulated that this joke by Tony Hinchcliffe was going to turn Latinos against Trump. Trump gets what? 45% of the Latino vote, the majority of men, largest in recent history. The Democrats somehow assumed that Latinos, they can't take a joke, right? They also assumed people had no other concerns, you know, besides a joke. Maybe for elite Latinos on X, you know, who don't have to worry about crime or inflation or the economy or immigration, they could get upset about a joke. But nobody bought that narrative. And I go back to what I said before. It's not about left or right anymore. It's about how the news creates narratives to brainwash you, and it's not happening.
Katie, I believe the leader of Mexico is a woman.
Yes.
I don't think Hispanics have a problem with voting a woman in office.
Exactly. Look, the identity politics, the divisive identity politics that Democrats have relied on for years and years and years are starting to come to an end. They've made all of these assumptions about people's skin color, trying to win elections by dividing people up and assuming that if you're from a certain group or of a certain gender, which lately they can't even define, that you should be voting for Democrats because Republicans are racist. Donald Trump is pulling those coalitions away from the Democrats, and they don't really have a way to make it up. I mean, having Joy Reid screaming about how Latinos are essentially the new white supremacists in this country isn't going to make their community safer. It's not going to make them have more money in their pocket. And they're smart enough to know that they're going to vote on issues rather than voting on who they should be told deserves their recognition or their party affiliation as a result of their skin color. And they're panicking because they really don't know how to work on this, given they've relied on it so heavily to win in the past.
Harold, why don't you guys just make it easier on yourselves and claim it was rigged?
Well, that would be what you guys would do. We decided not to do that. So, a couple
What do you mean by
things.
you guys?
You know what I mean. My colonizer. So, I'd say a couple of things. You look at what I don't like about what we're doing, what Joy Reid and some other friends of mine are doing in this space. The voters have spoken, and when Barack Obama ran for president in 2008 and created these coalitions of voters, coalition of support that included Republicans, that included traditional supporters of Republican candidates for president, we were excited about it. And Republicans, I might add, the Republican Party over the last 8 years, 10 years, has really reorganized and reintroduced and reimagined itself. They're now the party of the working class. We were the party of the working class for a long time, and Donald Trump, whatever you want to say about him, his being and his political athleticism has allowed him to do that. 1 in 3 voters of color voted for Trump. He won Hispanic men by 10 points. He won voters 18 to 29 by 10 points. The way you address that is not to say to those who are 18 or 29 that you are doing something as an affront to your parents, or to say to Hispanic men you are being disingenuous to Hispanic women. No, the question is, they made a calculation that Donald Trump would do better lowering prices, securing the border, lowering crimes in their neighborhoods, making energy in America so more jobs stay in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and keeping little boys out of little girls' bathrooms and sports. Those are the issues. All this other stuff we're talking about, it may make us feel good. It doesn't make me feel good going to dinner parties this way. I just walk out now, because if they don't want to get serious and honest about what happened, we're going to find ourselves in a cycle of losing. And I don't like losing. I don't like losing, not because as a person in politics, because I think when we do governing good as a Democratic Party, we do it well. But we're not doing it well right now, and we're not going to do it well if we stay focused on the nonsense and the pettiness that some are talking about right now.
You go to dinner parties and you don't even tell me about it?
And you leave?
You know what's funny, though, for just one last thing?
Yeah.
You know, it's not racism, it's not sexism, it's brainism. We are bigoted against people who don't have brains, which is why Joy Reid takes this so personally.
And again, abuela is grandmother in Spanish.
Thank you.
Gracias, amigo.
Yesterday we learned paterfamilias, and now we learned abuela.
You should try to work one new word in a day.
I'll see
Jesse
you on
teaches
Monday.
Spanish.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.